Know the difference with Annex Wealth Management and a collection of financial spring cleaning topics. Here we're going to cover something that could be critical to many professionals, equity compensation. From restricted stock units or RSUs to non-qualified stock options, these benefits could be a game changer. And you're going to hear them in industries like tech, healthcare, finance. Help us unwind this. We're joined by Tom Berkholtz, a senior financial planner at Annex Wealth Management. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Danny.
Let's start easy. What is equity compensation?
Yeah, great question. So equity compensation is really an umbrella term for various forms of non-cash pay that companies offer to employees. Instead of just, the old salary and bonus, employees may also receive stock-based awards like restricted stock units, non-qualified stock options. The list goes on and on. There's really an entire chicken noodle soup of acronyms to capture all of these options. So you're going to see things like RSUs, NQSOs, PSUs, and as you can probably tell, it can get complicated very quickly.
I'm going to guess these are used to maybe sweeten packages for potential hires on the way in, or retention tools too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, equity awards serve two key purposes. So one is attraction and one is retention because, let's face it, it's a competitive job market. Companies want the best and brightest workforce. Even think about like big tech and their race for AI dominance. The Apples, the Googles, NVIDIAs, they're awarding this type of stuff like crazy to attract all of their key talent. I actually just saw something with NVIDIA that 78% of their employees are millionaires. Equity compensation has a lot to do with that.
We're going to talk about RSUs and non-QSOs today. Both are equity compensation. They work a little differently. Let's talk about RSUs.
RSUs, or restricted stock units, these are going to be one of the most common forms of equity compensation that we see. And ultimately, they just represent a promise to deliver shares once certain conditions are met. Typically, this is just a time-based vesting schedule. So once they vest, they're considered ordinary income, similar to a bonus. And at that point, you can decide what to do with them, whether to hold on, sell them, or transfer them, depending on your goals.
How about non-qualified stock options?
Yeah, so non-qualified stock options, or NQSOs, they give you the right, but really not the obligation. They give you the right to buy company stock at a fixed price. It's commonly called the strike price. If the stock price goes up, you can choose when to exercise, so you have the control. So one example is if you get this award at a $50 strike price and then your company doubles and goes way up to $100, at that point, you can raise your hand and say, hey, I want to exercise my right to buy those shares at the $50 mark, and then you could immediately turn around and sell it at the $100.
So you got to be in it to win it. And these are great tools for employee retention. So you're not bouncing after a couple of years. You got to stick around. So with equity compensation, you're going to hear terms like vesting dates or options that eventually expire. How critical is timing?
It's so critical. If you have these, you have to keep your eye on them because, with traditional investing, you're going to hear things like set it and forget it. But with equity comp, it's completely different. If you're fortunate enough to receive something like this, you got to stay engaged. Timing, planning, and the strategy is going to make a huge difference on what you really get out of it.
The companies need to be winners, right, for this to work. If you've got an option at 50 and the stock is down at 25, that's not going to work. So that's not foolproof.
Right. And what you're describing is something called underwater. If your company stock doesn't perform well, you could be in a situation where your non-qualified stock option is actually worthless at the moment. The stock could recover eventually, but it's got to be within that window, which is the expiration date. It's commonly 10 years.
Tom Berkholtz is a senior financial planner at Annex Wealth Management. We're talking about equity compensation. So if you are going to act and buy these, you need to have the money, right? You got to save, you got to invest, you got to have the funds ready to exercise those options.
Right. And that's more common with non-qualified stock options. So when you raise your hand and you want to buy those shares at that strike price, you got to come up with the proceeds from somewhere. So a lot of employees have to have cash on the sideline or some other way to exercise that right.
Let's pivot to taxes. What do people need to know there with equity compensation?
This one, we could do a 2-hour podcast on taxes alone. So really, I will say as someone who reviews hundreds of tax returns every year, so many tax preparers are making mistakes when reporting equity compensation, and it can often lead to double taxation. So even with seasoned tax professionals, I'm seeing these mistakes all the time.
So employees need to really stay ahead on planning. They need to be aware of those deadlines, tax ramifications. Folks, if you got questions, you definitely need to talk with our financial planning team at Annex. That's a great place to start.
Right. Yeah, I'm passionate about this stuff. So whether you're a current client already or someone who just wants a second pair of eyes on their equity comp, we're happy and we want to meet you.
Any last advice?
Yeah, take action. You really want to maximize your potential with these stock options if you're fortunate enough to receive them. So proper planning is so vital. It's really possible your current advisor just doesn't have enough experience with these. So it's important to work with a team who has experience and years and a variety and a big team to help you with this.
Hey, that's us, annexwealth.com. Click that Get Started button. Tom Berkholtz, Senior Financial Planner at Annex Wealth Management. Thank you.
My pleasure.